press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.
Namaste children. In our last class we discussed about hormones produced by anterior pituitary gland. In the today's class we will discuss about hormones produced by posterior pituitary gland, and also one hormone we left in anterior pituitary gland, that is produced by the pars intermedia. In the last class we discussed hormones which are produced by pars distalis. So today we will discuss hormones which are produced by pars intermedia and also pars nervosa. So the pars intermedia, it is present, it is a middle lobe of a pituitary. Pituitary is also called hypophysis. That is why we call this part adenohypophysis. Anterior pituitary gland is also called adenohypophysis, and posterior pituitary gland is called neurohypophysis. So from the pars intermedia or middle lobe of the pituitary gland, it secretes a hormone called MSH, that is melanocyte stimulating hormone. So it secretes a hormone called melanocyte stimulating hormone. This hormone synthesizes a pigment called melanin. It synthesizes a pigment called melanin, which regulates the pigmentation of skin, which regulates pigmentation of skin. And its function is more prominent in, its function is more prominent in fishes, amphibians and reptiles. Its function is not clear in human beings, understood? Its function is more clear or more prominent in fishes, amphibians and reptiles, whereas the function of this hormone in human being is not certain, it is not clear, understood? So that is about melanocyte stimulating hormone. So next we will go with the hormone produced by posterior pituitary gland, that is oxytocin. It is also called pitocin. It is posterior hormone produced by posterior. It is a posterior pituitary hormone. It is a posterior pituitary hormone, or it is produced by posterior pituitary gland, and it mainly acts on smooth muscles of our body. Oxytocin mainly acts on smooth muscles of our body, and it results in contraction of the muscles. It results in contraction of the muscles. Oxytocin is also called birth hormone. Is also called birth hormone. Why it is called birth hormone means it helps in parturition. It helps in parturition or childbirth. Childbirth. How it helps in parturition or childbirth antandre? See, this is a uterus So uterus, we have 3 layers in the uterus: perimetrium, middle layer is myometrium, this is perimetrium, outer is perimetrium. So middle part is, middle is myometrium, and inner layer is endometrium. So this oxytocin acts on myometrium. Oxytocin acts on myometrium of the uterus, and what it will do? It leads to strong, vigorous contraction of uterine muscles. ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತದು? It acts on middle layer of the uterus, that is myometrium, and what it will do? It strong, vigorous contraction, constriction of uterine muscles occurs, that helps to expel the fully developed fetus outside the uterus. ಇಲ್ಲಿ muscles, uterine muscles constrict ಆದಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ? Fully developed fetus will come out from the uterus. That is nothing but childbirth or parturition. So oxytocin is called birth hormone because it helps in the delivery of completely developed fetus. It is in childbirth. How it helps in childbirth? Andre, this oxytocin acts on myometrium of the uterus and leads to strong contraction of that muscles. When uterine muscles contract vigorously, that pushes the fully developed fetus to expel out of the uterus, that leads to childbirth. So in this way, oxytocin is called birth hormone. With this, it also helps in ejection of milk. That means release of milk. It helps in ejection of milk. So ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ? So here these are alveoli, mammary duct, then it leads to lactiferous duct. You second year early, you are going to study in detail about this. These are fatty tissues. This is alveoli, mammary alveoli. This is mammary. ನಾನು ಒಂದನ್ನಷ್ಟೇ ದೊಡ್ಡದಾಗಿ ಡ್ರಾ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. So this is mammary alveoli. Milk is going to be produced inside the alveoli, mammary alveoli. ನೀವು lungs ಅಲ್ಲಿ alveoli ಅಂತ ಓದಿದ್ದೀರಾ. The functional unit of lungs is alveoli, where the exchange of gases takes place. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು mammary alveoli means these are alveoli are present in mammary gland. They are present in mammary gland. So this mammary alveoli is surrounded by myoepithelial cells. It is surrounded by myoepithelial cells on which oxytocin acts. When oxytocin acts on myoepithelial cells, that leads to constriction of alveoli, that leads to constriction of mammary alveoli, and the milk which is produced in the alveoli will be expelled into the mouth of the baby. In that way, it helps in ejection of milk. Nodi, prolactin hormone helps in production of milk. Competitive ನೀವು ಕ್ವಶನ್ ನೀಟಾಗಿ ನೋಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. So prolactin helps in production of milk, whereas oxytocin helps in ejection of milk. Prolactin is produced by anterior pituitary gland, whereas oxytocin is produced by posterior pituitary gland. This is about oxytocin. Okay, it is called birth hormone. Mainly it helps in delivery of a completely developed fetus. That process is called parturition. By constricting uterine muscles, it mainly acts on myometrium of the uterus, and It acts on myoepithelial cells surrounding the mammary alveoli and constrict them. That helps in expelling milk into the mouth of the baby. So, in that way it helps in ejection of milk. These are two functions of oxytocin. So, then we have one more posterior hormone, that is antidiuretic hormone, ADH. So, this hormone mainly helps in absorption of water and electrolytes. It mainly helps in absorption of water and electrolytes from the distal convoluted tubules and collecting tubules of nephrons or uriniferous tubules. So, ನೀವು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಕ್ರೀಟರಿ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಓದಿದ್ದೀರಾ. ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ so this is distal convoluted tubule, this one is collecting duct. This ADH mainly acts on distal convoluted tubules and collecting tubules for the absorption of water and electrolytes. Understood? So, this by absorbing water from the DCT and CT, it prevents the loss of water. In the absence of ADH, we see a condition called diuresis. In the absence of ADH, we see a condition called diuresis, means frequent passage of urine is called polyuria. That occurs mainly due to the absence of antidiuretic hormone. So, adike nodi, when ADH is present, it absorbs water from the DCT and CT. So, loss of water is going to be prevented. That means it prevents diuresis. That is why name called antidiuretic hormone. In the absence of ADH, there is no absorption of water from the DCT and CT, that leads to polyuria. That condition is called diuresis, and the person will feel thirsty and dehydration occurs in that person. That condition is called diabetes insipidus. That condition is called diabetes insipidus. Understood? Diabetes mellitus anta barutte, that we are going to study under pancreas. Here the absence of ADH leads to a diabetes insipidus, where we see diuresis, that is polyuria, that leads to thirsty and also dehydration in the person. The person feels thirsty, tumba bayarke aagta irutte, and also dehydration means the loss of water occurs in his body due to polyuria. And more amount of intake of coffee, tea, alcohol decreases the secretion of ADH. Understood? More amount of intake of coffee, tea and alcohol decreases the secretion of ADH, and the amount of secretion of this hormone is more in desert animals like camel. ADH secretion is more in desert animals like camels, because namage gottide in desert there is lack of scarcity of water alva, there we see scarcity of water. That's why the animals has to withstand or they have to prevent the loss of water. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, in that animals we see more amount of secretion of antidiuretic hormone to absorb water from the distal convoluted tubules of the nephrons. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ in desert animals they release concentrated urine. ಯಾಕೆ the desert animals they release concentrated urine? Because this hormone that absorbs maximum amount of water from the nephrons. That is about antidiuretic hormone. Antidiuretic hormone is a produced by posterior pituitary gland. It mainly helps in absorption of water and electrolytes from the distal convoluted tubules and collecting ducts of nephrons or uriniferous tubules. Thereby it prevents the diuresis. That's why it got a name, antidiuretic hormone. In the absence of this hormone, we see a condition called diuresis, where we see polyuria and a person feel thirsty, and also we can see dehydration in that person. That condition is called diabetes insipidus. So this is about the hormones produced by pituitary glands. So as most of the functions in our body is controlled by hormones produced by pituitary gland, the pituitary gland is called master of endocrine gland. Pituitary gland is called master of endocrine gland, and the function of pituitary gland is controlled by hypothalamus. Hagagi we may call hypothalamus as a master of master gland. Pituitary gland is a master of endocrine gland. Pituitary gland is considered as master of endocrine gland, and hypothalamus is considered as master of master gland, because hypothalamus controls and pituitary gland. Hypothalamus controls pituitary gland. Understood? So next we will go with pineal gland. So it is present in the dorsal side of forebrain. It produces a hormone called melatonin. It produces a hormone called melatonin, which regulates 24-hour rhythm, 24-hour, that is diurnal rhythm of our body. That is sleep and wake cycle. Agalu Ratri, sleep and wake cycle. So this melatonin is produced by pineal gland, which is present in the dorsal side of our forebrain. It regulates 24-hour rhythm of our body, diurnal rhythm of our body. In that way it acts as a biological clock. That means it helps to regulate sleep and wake cycle. Understood? With this, it also influences on metabolism. It also shows effects on metabolism and menstrual cycle, pigmentation, and immune system, and on immune system. Melatonin also has effects on metabolism, menstrual cycle, pigmentation and immune system in our body. This is about pineal gland. So this gland produces only one hormone, that is melatonin. It's mainly, this melatonin mainly helps to regulate 24-hour diurnal rhythm of our body, that is sleep and wake cycle. It acts as a biological clock. With this, it also influences on other functions like metabolism, menstrual cycle, pigmentation, also on our immune system. It increases immune of our body. You know that immune means it is an ability of an organism to fight against diseases. It is about pineal gland. Then we will go with one more gland, that is thyroid gland. It is largest endocrine. It is the largest gland under endocrine system. So this is larynx, trachea, thyroid gland, and isthmus. Thyroid gland is the largest endocrine gland among endocrine system. It is present on other side of the trachea. There are two lobes, bilobe. Thyroid gland is bilobe present on either side of the trachea, and two lobes are joined with a soft connective tissue called isthmus. Two lobes are joined with a soft connective tissue called isthmus. When you take transverse section of thyroid gland, when we take transverse section of thyroid gland, we see thyroid follicles. Circular one, what I am drawing, these are thyroid follicles. These are thyroid follicles. In between thyroid follicles, we see interfollicular cells. Interfollicular cells or stroma cells. Interfollicular cells are also called stroma cells. Thyroid follicles produces hormones. Thyroid follicles produces hormones called thyroxine or tetraiodothyronine T4, and it produces one more triiodothyronine hormone, that is T3. This thyroid follicles produces two hormones, thyroxine or tetraiodothyronine, that means it contains 4 iodine atoms, and one more hormone, triiodothyronine, which contains 3 iodine atoms. So this, for the production of these hormones, we need iodine. We need iodine. Iodine is very much essential in the synthesis or in the production of these hormones. And also these interfollicular cells or stromal cells produces these stroma cells or interfollicular cells, also called inter means between the follicles, understood? So interfollicular cells produces hormone thyrocalcitonin. Produces a hormone called thyrocalcitonin. Understood? Which lowers calcium level in a extracellular fluid. Thyrocalcitonin lowers calcium level in extracellular fluid. That is about the hormones produced by thyroid gland. Thyroid gland, it is bilobed gland present on either side of the trachea. Two lobes are joined with each other through isthmus, and in the presence of iodine, it produces hormones like T4, T3 and also thyrocalcitonin. Thyroxine is also called tetraiodothyronine, which contain 4 iodine atoms, and triiodothyronine, which contain 3 iodine atoms. We will go with the functions of thyroid gland. When coming to the functions of thyroid hormones. It is T3 and T4. Functions of thyroid hormones, that includes T3 and T4. It regulates basal metabolic rate. BMR, basal metabolic rate, means it regulates metabolism of carbohydrates, proteins and fats. Thyroid hormones mainly regulates basal metabolic rate. That means they regulate metabolism of carbohydrates, proteins and fats. It helps in the production of red blood cells. It is RBC. It helps in the formation of red blood cells. With this, it also helps in the maintenance of water and electrolyte balance in our body. Helps to maintain water and electrolytes in body fluids. Thyroid hormones T3 and T4 mainly helps to regulate metabolism of carbohydrates, proteins and fats, and also helps in the production of red blood cells, and also they helps to maintain water and electrolyte balance in body fluids. Whereas thyrocalcitonin it decreases calcium level in blood. It decreases calcium level in blood. How it decreases calcium level in blood? It allows uptake of calcium. By the bones. Bones absorbs the calcium present in the blood. In that way, it decreases the calcium level in blood. It is about the functions of thyroid hormones. So, in the absence of iodine, we see hyposecretion of thyroid hormones. In the absence of iodine, In absence of iodine, we see hyposecretion of hormones. Hyposecretion of thyroid hormones. In the absence of iodine, we see hyposecretion of thyroid hormones that leads to enlargement of thyroid gland, that is called goiter. Goiter means enlargement of thyroid gland. Enlargement of thyroid gland is nothing but goiter. This results due to hyposecretion of thyroid hormones. Hypo means less secretion of thyroid hormones in the absence of iodine. Whereas in pregnant women, the hyposecretion leads to underdevelopment and maturation of baby, that leads to stunted growth called cretinism. You should read your textbooks. Every point is in your NCERT textbook. So, hyposecretion of thyroid hormones in pregnant women leads to underdevelopment and maturation of the baby, that leads to a stunted growth, and that condition is called cretinism. And also with this, thyroid hormones results in mental retardation in that baby. Mental retardation, low intelligent quotient, and deaf mutism occurs in the hyposecretion of thyroid hormones in pregnant women. Understood? You should remember this point. Cretinism is seen in pregnant women if she is facing hyposecretion of thyroid hormones. That means in the absence of thyroid hormones, we see underdevelopment and maturation of the baby with stunted growth and mental retardation, low intelligent quotient, deaf mutism. That all condition is nothing but cretinism. Stunted growth due to hyposecretion of thyroid hormone is called cretinism. Understood? And hyposecretion in adult women causes abnormal menstrual cycles. Hyposecretion in adult women causes irregular menstrual cycle. Hyposecretion in adult women causes irregular menstrual cycle. Then coming to hypersecretion. Hypersecretion means what? Increased secretion of thyroid hormones. Increased secretion of thyroid hormones due to cancer or any other genetic reasons. We see increased secretion of thyroid hormones that adversely affect or physiological, that adversely affects physiological functions in a body. So, hyper means increased secretion of thyroid hormones adversely affects physiological functions in our body or in a body. Understood? It is about thyroid gland and Note antandre this is not given in your book, but you have to know. Thyroid gland is the only gland which stores its hormone in its inactive state. It stores hormone. Which one? Thyroid gland stores hormones in its inactive state. It's the only gland, thyroid gland is the only gland which stores hormones in its inactive state. And hypersecretion. Hypersecretion causes a disease called mixed edema or it's also called Gull's disease. It also calls Gull's disease. So what we are going to observe in these persons? Hypersecretion. In hypersecretion leads to a disease called mixed edema or Gull's disease. In this person we see falling of air. This hypothyroidism anta ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. Hyposecretion is nothing but hypothyroidism. Hypothyroidism is less secretion of thyroid hormones. So we see falling of air, decreased heart rate, bradycardia, decreased heart rate, that is bradycardia, and weight gain occurs. Weight gain occurs. So this we see in hypothyroidism. Falling of air, decreased heart rate, and weight gain occurs. So that is about hyposecretion or hypothyroidism. And hypersecretion or hyperthyroidism. Hyperthyroidism or in hypersecretion we see a disease called exophthalmic goiter. We see it. Exophthalmic goiter. It's also called Graves' disease. It's also called Graves' disease. So in the hyperthyroidism cases, we see increased heart rate, tachycardia, increase in heart rate, increased basal metabolic rate BMR, and weight loss occurs. Weight loss occurs in spite of regular intake of food. In spite of regular intake of food, we see weight loss in hyperthyroidism, in hypersecretion of thyroid hormones. So exophthalmic, we see protrusion of eyeball or protruding eyeball is seen in this person. So we see exophthalmic andre eyeball mundugade bandirutte, that condition is called exophthalmic. Goiter means again enlargement of thyroid gland, and that is goiter. With the enlargement of thyroid gland we see protrusion of eyeball, that's why it got a name exophthalmic goiter. In that person we see increase in heart rate, increased basal metabolic rate, and weight loss occurs in spite of taking regular food. That is about the thyroid gland. And we move with one more gland, that is parathyroid gland. Is present. This is thyroid gland. On the dorsal side of thyroid gland, we see for each lobe of thyroid gland. On the posterior part of the thyroid gland, Each lobe contains pair of parathyroid glands. These are parathyroid glands. This parathyroid glands produces a peptide hormone called parathyroid hormone, PTH. Parathyroid gland produces a hormone called parathyroid hormone. The parathyroid glands are 4 in number, and this hormone it increases calcium level in blood. It increases calcium level in blood by absorption of calcium in the nephrons, and from digested food, and it increases by bone resorption and the demineralization by bone resorption or demineralization. It increases calcium level in blood. That's why this hormone we can call hypercalcemic hormone. Why it is called hypercalcemic hormone? Because it increases calcium level in blood by absorption of calcium in the nephron and from digested food, and also it leads to demineralization or resorption of bone. That all increases calcium level in the blood. This PTH, that is parathyroid hormone, and thyrocalcitonin hormone, parathyroid and thyrocalcitonin hormone, both these regulates calcium level in blood. They balance the calcium amount in blood. Understood? When we need calcium, already nimge locomotion and movement al gottide. What is the importance of calcium? So we need calcium for proper functioning of muscles. So illenagate when they feel that calcium level is less in the blood, then the parathyroid hormone is going to function. When the calcium level increases in the blood, thyrocalcitonin is going to function to decrease the thyrocalcitonin decreases calcium level. It decreases calcium level in the blood, whereas parathyroid hormone increases calcium level in the blood. So these two hormones mainly helps in regulating or balances the calcium level in the blood. So this is about parathyroid hormone, which is produced by parathyroid gland. So in the next class we will discuss about thymus gland and adrenal gland with the pancreas. Thank you.